Okay, so we're up to way number 13, which is Yishuv, which means being deliberate. So, obviously, life is a series of decisions. So, how do we gain confidence in our decision making, whether it's in our job, in our marriage, raising our kids? The key is to be deliberate, to take time to think things over, see different points of view, different sides of the issue, and carefully weigh the pros and cons. However, the flip side of that is obviously not to end up in analysis paralysis, where we don't get to anything because we become paralyzed with fear by looking at the sides without being able to make a decision. So a great analogy that Reb Noach gives is, imagine you are walking a tightrope across Niagara Falls, and as you're walking, you're obviously calculating the wind and you're calculating where to put your feet, and then you notice behind you is a maniac coming with a hatchet, right? So on the one hand, you got to still be deliberate. On the other hand, you got to move. So that's the way it is in life as well. You have to strike the proper balance between being deliberate and still moving forward. So B'yishav means to sit on things, think them through. Don't be hasty, slow down, examine it, but don't become so anxious that you can't execute. So this also applies to obviously acquiring wisdom. When we hear something new, when we learn something new, we have to analyze, is this something that I really believe in? Is it something that is true? And if it is, how do I incorporate it into my life? So number one of this is what Reb Noach calls the 4 steps of deliberation. Okay, so wisdom, we know, is the food for the soul. Just like we have food for our body, we have food for our soul. So you can break it into the 4 fundamental steps that we take in creating food, right? So the first step, step 1, is to plow. So plowing, when it comes to wisdom, is just like tilling the ground, is to listen attentively, to gather the initial information clearly, right? Make sure that there's a basic foundation that's ready. Step number 2 is to plant. So after you prepare the ground, you have to put the seeds in, which means gather the evidence in support of or against the idea that you're trying to anchor. Step 3 is to harvest. So included in this step is not only bringing the information in a more deep way, but it's also assessing the information. Is it kernel or chaff, right? And if it's true and you believe it's something that you want to focus in your life, find a way to do it. And if it's not, then throw it away like the chaff that it is. And then step number 4 is eating, right? So you have to take what you have harvested, what you've created, and turn it into something digestible. So this is all about, how do I take this knowledge, how do I take this idea, and actually do something practical with it. So number 2 of Yishuv, of deliberation, is the 6 tools to actually deliberate. So tool 1 is the tool of a nightly recap. Great tool. Before going to bed, before going to sleep, take 5 minutes to think through your day. Ask yourself if you discovered something new, and try to look at it and assess whether it's something that belongs in your life. Don't just cruise aimlessly through life. Be deliberate about living. Tool number 2 is to capture and concretize. We all have flashes of insight. We're walking down the street, or we hear something really amazing, and we say, wow, that's a life-changing piece of information. I know it's going to impact me going forward. An hour later, it's forgotten. The next day, it's definitely forgotten. So how do we make sure that we bring that information in and use it, so the next time you have that moment of inspiration, stop, freeze, don't move, think about that insight, write down its implications and how you plan to implement it. So tool number 3 is to think before you speak. We all have ups and downs. We have good days and bad days, right? If we have knee-jerk reactions to the things that are happening to us and we make hasty decisions, they're almost always ineffective. So when someone hurts or insults you, wait before you react. Before you start shouting, pause, catch yourself, count to 10, be deliberate. Similarly, if someone asks you a question, think before you answer. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know, right? When someone asks you your point of view, you can say, I'm not sure, or you can say, it seems to me. In the long run, you gain respect. The Gemara teaches us in Brachas that you have to teach your mouth to say, I don't know. Okay, and ultimately, it's a very, very powerful tool. Tool number four is to analyze information. When you hear or read something, train yourself to summarize it, to bring it to its central point in only a few words, and then take some time to think over and articulate what you've learned. It also helps to have some basic questions that you ask yourself about any piece of wisdom. Is the source objective, right? What's the evidence to the piece of information? What aspects of it don't I understand? And then ultimately, what are the implications or the consequences of this information to my life? Asking these questions will sharpen your analytical abilities and help you apply practically what you've learned, right? And even though it may seem like it adds time, right, and slows you down, once you master the technique, it becomes kind of automatic. Tool number 5 is to be prepared before you enter any situation, be it a negotiation with your boss, a business deal, a heated family discussion, a discussion with your children, right? Think about what you want to do, how you want to act, and the primary ideas that you want to communicate. It helps you act with much greater confidence in the moment. It also helps you avoid getting sidetracked by the heat of the moment, which often happens. And then you get off into argument number 2, argument number 3, argument number 4, when really all you needed to do is stay focused on the critical point. Tool number 6, give it time, right? You ever go to sleep with a problem and wake up with a solution? Well, that's normal, right? To gain clarity, sometimes you have to walk away from the situation, then come back to it later. Over time, we can get the answer. So be patient, ask others for advice, pray, ask Hashem for help, right? And the clarity will ultimately come. So applied wisdom for this is take one piece of wisdom that you've decided to believe in and contemplate it. What does the concept really mean? Is it real to me? Do I really mean it? Right? What should I do about it? And what am I going to do about it and why? Right? That's one. And then the second one is take something that comes at you and apply the 4 steps of deliberation. Plow, plant, harvest, and eat to the concept.